3 points, closing in on top 4, and everybody accusing us of cheating. The good times are back, my friends. This is the Arsenal Vision Post-Match Podcast. My name is Elliot Smith. You can block me on Twitter, Yankee Gunner. Second time I've had to do that intro for technical reasons that you don't have to know about, but I feel I reproduced it pretty well. A fine simulacrum of the first effort. And I will tell you, it does feel like the good times are back. 3 more points, 2 weeks to celebrate it. We are going to put out, I think the technical term here I have written down is a buttload of content around Arsenal's upturn in fortunes. And with Liverpool losing at the weekend, you might have thought, oh no, bad result because West Ham won. No, my friends. The title is on. Let's keep our eyes on the prize here. Title season is on. And, you know, I love it. It just feels... There's a nostalgia of this about, you know, some jammy little club down the bottom of the table. Something about bollocks I remember about them. I don't know. Accusing us of not being nice enough. We didn't put the ball out when they faked injury when we scored. And it's brilliant, and I love it. And I see a lot of Arsenal fans trying to make the counter argument. Well, Sarr wasn't really injured, so we had a right to play on. No. Lean into it. Yeah, we were bastards. Well, we cheated you guys. Definitely. I mean, you only came to kick us off the park. But, you know, yeah, we cheated you guys. I love it. I love every bit of it. And it only makes the win sweeter for me. I have to admit, a game I really enjoyed. I went on to the Instant Reaction podcast for patrons with Clive and Paul. And, like, their just natural negativity was coming through. It really tried to bring me down, but couldn't bring me down. And I do want to say thanks to everyone who bared with me through Thursday's weird pod as I suffered through what sometimes you might call the man flu, you know, when you just say, oh, boo-hoo, I don't feel well. But it turns out it's pneumonia. That's right. Full bout of pneumonia. And let me tell you, you don't want it. It's no fun, but I am on the mend, and I'm happy to be here with Clive. You can find him on Twitter, Clive PFC. Hello, Clive.
Hello.
And Tim, you can find him on Twitter, Roberto. Hello, Tim.
Hello there.
And Paul, you can find him on Twitter, Pause My Pencil, Pause.
I think I preferred you when you were sick.
Really?
So this is a lot of Elliot.
It is a lot of Elliot. It's a lot of me. It is a lot of me. You know, I had to go into the hospital and wear one of those gowns, and my wife said, you know, the ones that tie in the back.
Yeah,
my wife said the same thing. Said, "It's a lot of you that I'm seeing right now." So you're getting an audio version of what she got from a visual standpoint. Okay, that's now seared in all of your consciousnesses. Me in a hospital gown. So sorry for that, but there is genuine, exciting stuff to get to. Now, look, Josh Kroenke gave an interview before this game. I think it's interesting. I think it is absolutely a topic worth discussing, given, let's just say it, the frankly extravagant length of our podcasts. I imagine we'll have enough on the game that you don't need us to get into that today. And since it is an interlull, we will get into that tomorrow. Tim, just real quick, I'm going to run your interview tomorrow. Do you want to give a quick teaser for it? It'll be a bonus episode on the main feed, so everyone will get it. But a really good interview that you did, and maybe you can just sort of preface what people will be hearing.
Yeah, sure. So I interviewed Gabriel Clark, who is the main director of the Arsene Wenger documentary that is out this week, I believe, and got a little look at the documentary. So I asked Gabriel just about how it all came together, the process and everything, how open Arsene was, how he got some pretty stellar guests on there, including the likes of Thierry Henry, Patrick Vieira, Robert Pires, and Sir Alex Ferguson. And just had like a good 20 minutes with Gabriel about where this all came from, how it was put together, and how he got Arsene to talk about certain things that I've not really heard him talk about before, and actually, I think, admit some culpability about things that happened in the last few years of his reign, which I thought was really interesting, but really interesting documentary. Thought it was really, really well done, and I have a good 20-minute chin wag with Gabriel about it.
A good documentary, good film. And I think it's fair to say, Tim, maybe a nice relief from or contrast to a book that I think people felt was too guarded and not revealing enough. That while this is nostalgic and fun in some ways, it addresses some things that are maybe just a little sharper edges for Arsene and for the fan base than maybe the autobiography. Would you say that's fair?
100%. And I think having like a couple of directors too, you know, there's another guy involved that Arsene knows very, very well, and Gabriel kind of knew him a bit from reporting on him over the years, but I think having other people in charge of it definitely led to that, whereas my understanding of the book is it was very much Arsene's book, and there wasn't really that push for some of the juicier detail, but I think there really is in this documentary.
Yeah, well done with the interview. And look, I know everyone listening already heard Andrew's interview with him on the Arscast. That does not relieve you of your duty to listen to ours, because Tim did a brilliant job and we love and support Tim. So please love and support Tim by listening to that tomorrow. But for today, it's all about beating Watford. Clive, I know you hated the performance, hated the game, as I heard on the Instant Reaction pod. I'm going to try to tease some positivity out of you if possible. I kid, but I don't kid. I really liked this game, and I think I liked it because I saw us do a thing that I really wanted to see us do, which is just dominate territory more, push a team back more, be able to take advantage of a team that doesn't want to have the ball. Now, to be fair, because they didn't want to have the ball, maybe some of that was just us being able to do what they were letting us do. But I thought right off the bat, again, the distances were better, the spacing was better, and the attacking intent was good. There's a chance, right early on. We obviously have the early Saka goal that sort of unfortunately ruled out. But I'm curious, in sort of the opening period where I really felt we had them pushed back, did you see that as a sort of evolutionary step forward in terms of our ability to control possession and territory, or more of a reflection of styles?
I think it's more a reflection of where we are. Mm-hmm. I think we're getting better. We've had them since last international break. We've garnered the most points of anybody in the league. So we are the form team in the league. So people eventually are going to stop trying to play us and step away. Well, Watford certainly tried to do that. I think that forced us into a different shape and into a different way of playing and different problems. And at the moment, recently, we've been able to get through to Lacazette and go from there and build up there nicely. All our defenders are decent on the ball, so it doesn't matter which one's got it. We can switch to play. We can move it left foot, right foot. And we can carry it in between lines. And we've done that in recent weeks to get it through to Lacazette. And from there, we bounce around and then go second phase into the final third. And I felt Watford did a decent job of forcing us to the exterior. So with my eye, I was thinking, well, okay, we're back to the wide triangles again and wide diamonds with Lacazette out on the right, Nuno high on the left, Saka high on the right, and try to create those connections in those wide areas with Smith Rowe on the left also. So, and then with Maitland-Niles tucking in left back, this is back to a shape that we've seen before. And when it doesn't work, we don't like it. But I think Watford forced us into this. But the difference between this game and previous games is I think we got more people on the pitch to solve the problems. And I think Ben White is a great example of that. When teams are trying to block your passing lanes, but offering you space to run through, then he ran through it. And I think that forces people to commit. And we all know that once you commit to the guy on the ball, you can pop it off and go from there. So I think there's an evolution of Arsenal happening as we get better. And as we get better, teams are going to expose maybe weaknesses that we have, weaknesses maybe in the box, weaknesses in what we do, and when we have our preferred style of play actually countered. And I think I use the word counter, and I think that is us. I still feel we're a transition team, and the goal was caused on a counter press transition, wasn't it? I think sometimes you have to actually tweet this out. Arsenal sometimes need to give the ball away to get it back. And I still feel that's who we are. And when teams actually drop away, we're going to be discussing the next phase of Arsenal. And I did feel, I was talking to Andrew during the game, I did feel this was a scalpel day, Tim. This was a scalpel day developing where Odegaard needed to come on and do some stuff. And it just goes to show we have the answers in the squad, and every game won't be the same. And I think this was an interesting preview to how some of the lower teams are going to play us going forward.
Yeah, the funny thing is, right, like I think what's so different though, there were days in the past where we might have sterile domination, as we might have called games like this a little bit. I don't think it was as much as some people, but there was that glass jaw in the background. So you'd have the ball and you'd be passing it around the horseshoe, but there was that feeling that the sucker punch was coming. You'd give it away and immediately the other team would look dangerous with two passes. And I think the difference is I don't mind us playing this way because the glass jaw doesn't feel like it's there. I never felt that Watford were going to hurt us going the other direction. Now, all right, set the last, that sort of 20-minute period after we scored aside where we did the thing we do where we kind of maybe get a little more passive than we need to be. Just put that aside for a minute. I think in the initial, half, the way we dominated the game reflected not just a better ability to keep the ball and be dangerous, but to not have that glass jaw in the other direction. And, I think it is really worth pointing out that referees play a role in a game in terms of what they allow the other team to do defensively. Watford used rotational fouling in this game, and teams will do it, and you can't moan about it, but the referee can make a big difference. At one point, Watford had 12 fouls to our 2, and we both had 2 yellow cards. To put that in perspective, Watford's 12 fouls in the first half were one off the most we'd been fouled in any game this season. They came to kick us, and I think Kevin Friend let them get away with that. There were some really good performances in here that we can get to and some really good moments. But Paul, one of the things that I think is so encouraging about this game in a forward-looking way is look at that starting midfield. Ainsley Maitland-Niles and Albert Sambi-Lokonga. And we didn't lose anything, in my view. We didn't look diminished there. We had the ball recovery from Maitland-Niles and the carrying. We had Sambi, working as the hub. This was his game to be the party replacement as opposed to the Xhaka replacement, and I thought it suited him better. And it's interesting. I think a lot of people felt that Maitland-Niles had the better game. I think he had the more robust game. But if you look at it, Maitland-Niles completed half the passes Sambi did. So it was clearly a passing hub and more of a carrier and coverer. And the pairing worked really well. And given with the AFCON coming up and the situation we could have there, I think this was really encouraging. So do you have sort of a thought, maybe preliminarily, just on the presence of that central midfield specifically and how encouraging it is to see those 2 players step right in without us really missing a beat?
Yeah, I think you framed it right. This was kind of the party Xhaka arrangement, but with Lokonga as the hub.
Can I ask you a question about that?
Yeah.
Just from recollection, is this, in your mind, the first time this season Sambi's had that role, the 1A instead of the 1B? Because I think it is, right?
Didn't they play together against Leeds, maybe?
Yeah, I can look back.
I want to think Wimbledon. I don't know why it comes to mind,
Maybe
but
it's Wimbledon.
I'm not sure.
I think they've had an outing together, but it's certainly in the Premier League. Yeah,
yeah, that's right. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, while this may not have been an incredible performance from Lokonga compared to other games he's had, I think we need to remember that this was the first time at this level he's kind of had that starring role, and with basically a new partner, Maitland-Niles, doing the Xhaka thing, dropping in, covering Nuno as he goes forward, dropping into like left back to make sure Sarr is covered, and generally being the kind of the support to Lokonga. I thought, I haven't associated Maitland-Niles with like clever passing. Mm-hmm. In recent times, I did in the past, but when we saw him on loan, he was a very functional midfielder, I guess, for West Brom. And for us, he had become very functional as a fullback. He was defensively very strong, and he was good running forward, but didn't do much in the final third. And I thought, actually, he started to show some of his cleverness and range of passing in this game as the auxiliary midfielder here. And so it was like he was pretty close to my man of the match. He was my stock rising for the game because he's really established himself as a potential factor and solution for AFCON if Xhaka isn't back in time and isn't fully fit. I mean, I think it's just the 2 Premier League games and maybe a couple of cup games if we're still in all the cups, Carabao and the FA Cup, etc. But, that could be a key partnership we need to rely on. As Roy Keane might say, party likes a niggle. So occasionally he'll have a little time out and Xhaka might take a little time to get back to full fitness. I guess there's always the possibility he's not quite the same afterwards, knee-wise, but I think he probably will be. So Maitland-Niles' role could be quite important. I thought they were both very good. Now, the context is Watford backing off us and kind of leaving us the final third and mid-third so they could build reasonably comfortably. But I thought they did a very credible job, and it does make it very difficult getting into the final third. And I think they were both fairly clever in terms of how they played into the final third. Maitland-Niles had some eye-catching, clever little passes. So I thought it was very, very credible performance. We want to see them to test them against other opposition, but that was one of the most encouraging aspects of the performance. Yeah.
Yeah, and I just think in general, midfield is a part of the pitch that we might have had some anxiety about going into this season, and especially,
it's nice that our fallback isn't El Neni, right?
Yeah, and by the way, he came on and I think helped us shore up a game that maybe we were losing a little control of. So I think he deserves some credit for that. But yes, like the transformation with Maitland-Niles this season is really remarkable, because I always felt, one of my arguments for selling him is, whether you like Maitland-Niles or not, having a fourth right back is not worth whatever we could get for him. I didn't really think he was in the frame as a midfielder except in sort of emergency situations. And I think now he is a sort of first sub midfielder potential and a starting potential. And during AFCON will certainly get a lot of starts. So credit to him for getting his head down. Arteta said some really nice things about him after the match and the work he's been doing.
I think it was important, you get these very pat compliments, but this was very specific about him, that he was being very clever, head down, paying attention, asking questions, trying to understand, he's buying in right now. Now, who knows what the future may be? He talked about body language, which, people can feel what they like about body language, but I think it tells you a hell of a lot. And it always told me a hell of a lot with Maitland-Niles, when he was on it and when he wasn't. And I found that very, very encouraging, how he complimented it. He could have just said, he's really been good and he's really helping out and he's showing enthusiasm. But this was very coaching specific. And it was a follow-up question. It wasn't the first question. It was like somebody said, how is he improving, to Arteta? So he went deeper on it. I thought it was a very interesting answer. Yeah,
I agree. Tim, I'm curious, sort of, firstly, to get your general take on whether you thought this was sort of a cagey, sterile domination type game, or more in my court of thinking that we had the game more well in hand and we're threatening. I mean, it's worth remembering we had the ball in the back of the net early, like a chance in the first minute, ball in the back of the net early, ruled out by an offside, rightly ruled out, but a little unlucky. We have a penalty that's saved, and you will not see a more justified penalty, and I think you could even say a red card. Danny Rose, who looks like he is, if not expanding in talent, is expanding just in terms of his presence, so to speak.
Somebody said he was a one-man, three-man wall. Yeah,
interesting situation going on there. It still pains me, like the only highlight in Danny Rose's career is a screamer against us, but that's another story. I think there were dangerous moments here. It didn't feel like sterile domination to me. So for you, in terms of an overall step in the progression, do you think you saw more out of the attack today in this game that reflects a continued upward trend?
Yeah, I definitely do. Because as you pointed out, if this game had finished 3-0, nobody would have batted an eyelid. Nobody would have said, "Oh my God, they got a bit lucky for 3-0." I think the XG was 1.65. Or something like that. So that shows you, I appreciate we missed a penalty, but a penalty is a penalty. You earn a penalty.
And you don't earn it a lot more than that, that's for sure.
Yeah. And when you score it, it's a goal. By
the way, we should point out, right, that I think Odegaard's shot won't be reflected in that because the Aubameyang touch is offside, right? So that's
exactly. Really, you're looking at, I'm sure that would have been up in the kind of 0.4 kind of. I think you're looking at about 2 XG there, and look, what the XG on that shot is doesn't really matter, because if Aubameyang doesn't go for it, it goes in. This was really a 2 or 3-0 game that finished 1-0. I'm really struggling to think of anything Watford created. I think the point on the midfield, what Watford have really started to do under Ranieri is kind of bypass midfield anyway. They go front to back much, much more quickly now than they were under Munoz, their previous manager, who was much more of a pass out from the back kind of guy. With Ranieri, it's very much, particularly with Ben Foster in goal, who has got a bit of a boot on him. They go front to back very quickly and they try and counter press from there. So it was a day where maybe the midfield would be bypassed, but at the same time, Watford still counter press, and that's where Maitland-Niles really impressed me. Just the way he was able to turn away from some of that pressure and some of the coolness and the step overs and kind of getting away from Watford players as they kind of came for those second balls. That was the most impressive part of his performance for me. But yes, I did look at this as a bit of a step forward. I think maybe in the last kind of 10 minutes or so, we probably took our foot off the gas more than we should have. And
Can I ask you a question? Last
Sure.
10 minutes or the 10 or 15 right after we scored? Because I thought we started to get maybe back on. It got a little bit back and forth and open in the last 10 minutes, I thought.
Yeah, true. And actually, that is a bit of a pattern. Like against Villa, when we went 3-0 up, we kind of retreated. But then the last 10 minutes, and the same with Leicester, where, to be honest, we were pinned back. But once it got to about 70 minutes, we started picking up on the counter-attack again.
Odegaard sub feels like important there because Lacazette definitely fades at the hour mark.
Yeah, definitely. And I kind of agree with Clive's analysis on Lacazette. And I'm not going to put these words into Clive's mouth. They're my words. But this felt like a game too far for Lacazette, which is not like... Yeah, which is not like, and I suspected it might be before the game, but that's not like a criticism of him or Arteta really. It's just we've played 2 games with that formation now, and that means, you know, teams know about it. Now it's not a surprise anymore. So this is just the dance that happens, right? You deploy a new system. The first couple of games, no one knows what you're doing. Then they start to pick up data points, and then, you know, you maybe get a game where this happens, but then you react to those data points and you say, okay, well, Watford were doing this. So to avoid doing that, you know, that's just the dance. And I don't.
Can I say something on the Lacazette point, Tim? I was thinking about that a little bit. Like against Leicester and Villa, etc., they gave us more midfield to play through. And so Lacazette dropping in made sense and joined the dots, and then we got up the pitch. In this one, there was no point in Lacazette drop. There was nothing to drop into. You know what I mean? So he didn't have a chance to show off that side of it. So I think he had it's a funny business. I sometimes wish you could play both players depending on the scenario. And like we needed Odegaard and Lacazette in this because without Lacazette you lose.
Well, you know what, Paul? That conversation's coming in this pod. So let's table that for a second because there's one player, just one, who might come in for some criticism in this podcast and may lead to a discussion of that. So let's come back to that.
I think that's a slightly different one in that this specific role for Lacazette, I think it added a lot of it. If you go back and look at the good parts of our play, Lacazette's all over it, even if he didn't have the game we associate with him. So I feel a strong affinity for Lacazette's game in this particular match.
It's his quick thinking. Let's call it quick thinking on the goal. In terms of just like fuck off, we're taking the throw in.
Yeah.
And he certainly he adds a little bit of that. He adds he's a grown up, right?
Also, his volley that leads to the disallowed goal, which I thought was a clever because he has another one. Tim,
he's all over the place. Seriously, when we do a rewatch on it, Lacazette has it's a different game, but it's a really good game.
Doesn't he have one where he slides into the right channel? The one thing that I really think has gone downhill with Lacazette, if anything has, is not getting his shot off quick enough. And there's one where he gets into the right channel and takes an extra touch instead of hitting it, and it's there to be hit. So anyway, Tim, sorry, this has been a great segment for you to hear what Paul and I think. So
No, that's absolutely fine. That's but yeah, in short, I do agree with you, Elliot. I think I'm maybe not as firm on it quite as you, but I did come away from that game thinking this was a 3-0 that we won 1-0.
Yeah, and I think that we ultimately have a striker issue we're going to resolve because Aubameyang and Lacazette both are going to be replaced by the future, and the future is question mark? We don't know. We don't know yet, but maybe that player will embody a little bit of what both of those players can do for us. Instead of right now, I feel like we're solving one position with 2 players. If you follow what I'm saying, we're using Aubameyang and Lacazette to be one striker in a way. And I think that we can probably solve that with one player and then get Odegaard back in the lineup. And we'll see more of that, I think, going forward. Anyway, Clive, let me just let you expand on that topic real quick. And then I want to get into a couple individual performances that I think could be overlooked if we're not careful. And I want to make sure they're not. But the role that Lacazette and Aubameyang are playing, look, we're going to have to get into Aubameyang not having his best day, and certainly not through a lack of effort. But, I think Lacazette and Aubameyang as a 2 are keeping Odegaard out of the lineup right now. games like this will certainly have, I think, Arteta scratching his head about maybe whether there's a Lacazette Odegaard lineup that keeps Aubameyang out. But in general, I do think Tim hits on an interesting point about, Lacazette's role in this game and your point about it being a game too far for him. So how do you think that dynamic plays out in terms of Lacazette, Aubameyang, and then, sort of Odegaard is the one who either comes back in at the expense of one of them or misses out for the time being?
Yeah, I think Tim was talking about the dance, and what he's really saying, I think, is...
Now put the words in his mouth. You guys just jam words in each other's mouth.
Yeah, well, we think quite similarly a lot of the time, but hey, look, things change on each game, right? So Lacazette's been brilliant the last couple of games. Can't repeat that for the whole year. No chance, right? He's running himself into the ground. And so that can't be repeated every single week. And so for me, he's been the spiritual leader of the team in the last sort of 3 games. And Ben White's been the tactical leader of the team. He's been the technical leader, shall I say? Tactical leader, maybe it's the same thing. And Lacazette, I think, did try to adjust his position. And I think in the last game against Leicester, I didn't notice so much that he was hanging right, creating space in the middle for those drilled Ramsdale passes out. And that was one thing. I felt this game, he was really spent a lot of time in lane 5. And I thought it pushed Saka inside. I think Saka had his best game in a long time. And so I think they're trying to adjust him so people to follow him and to move people around. And I think they recognize that people are starting to zero in on him. So I think, although he only had it wasn't a high passing game or a high touch game, I still think he was spiritually there at a time when Aubameyang wasn't there. And so his role is still important to me. Well, his influence is important. I think sometimes people need to separate the two. He can have a hugely influential game without playing well, if that makes sense. And I still think he's influential for this young team, and we need that old guy up there, that old guy with the dad-sized hands, to do stuff, right, and move people around. And he definitely did that in this game, even though I felt he was on the edge of his physicality, shall I say, in the game. And I was yearning for Odegaard, because it was a game where we need to switch the point of attack and move people around. Switch the point of attack over the block to the sides. And when Odegaard comes on, mate, everyone's in play. Everyone's in play. His technique when he switches the ball, it's like, oh my God, look at that. And he looked like he wanted to prove a point, which is great. We're getting that thing called competition again. We see what Nuno's done. Now Odegaard's come back in. Suddenly, he's thinking, I better do something here. He's flicking it around the corner. He's switching it. He's running around, tracking people down. He's saying, pick me. I can't miss this bus. I need to be on it. I spent years on the back of my backside playing for Real Madrid. I'm not missing this bus as well. So this is what happens when you get good people competing against each other. So moving slightly on to the forward play, you're right, Elliot, about we're playing 2 strikers. We're playing 1+1 really, and the dynamics of those individual player profiles means we play a different way. So when Laka plays, we have a different style. We can be a bit more physical, a bit more robust, a bit more bombastic in our tackles, shall we say. When Odegaard plays, he's a bit more touch, switch, flick, touch, change the point of the angle for the pass. And I think Odegaard probably would have suited Watford a little bit more than Lacazette in hindsight, but they both played and we got the result. But we all know the next phase of Arsenal's evolution is in the centre forward. And what that player looks like. And it's a debate. And I think I got an idea, but I don't know if I'm right. And at this moment in time, after the last 6 signings, I'm rubbing my hands in glee, looking at what they're going to do. Who's it going to be? And I got some ideas. We've got a couple of weeks to talk about this. I got some ideas what that player could be and what it could look like. And it is a combination of the two. But I do feel it needs to be a pivot player. I do think we have active, sprinty transition forward. But the one thing we don't have, if you project forward in your mind, and Watford are telling us what's going to come in the next few weeks and months if we keep improving, we are going to be forced into wide areas, and then we're going to need a box presence. That's the one thing we are not great at. So we are good at cutbacks, we're good at creating combinations, but if someone sits and gives us the sides and we have to cross, we haven't solved that yet. We've got people who can cross it and dink it and fizz it, but we haven't got the people who are brave in the box, and so again, our weaknesses are going to be uncovered, and the future the next phase of Arsenal is going to be so interesting when those, for me, another centre mid and a centre forward arrive, and we'll see the next phase of our development.
Yeah. It's so fun exploring what the future could be and how this evolves from a position of feeling good about it. I feel like for the last couple of seasons, it was, how do we unwind this mess? And it felt so tangled and opaque. And now that it feels more rejuvenated and encouraging, sort of dreaming about the next little pieces are a lot more enjoyable, if that makes sense. There was something really heavy and unpleasant about having to think of like, wow, we've got all these players we don't want who are old and expensive, and we have to get rid of them, and it's such a big rebuild, and it feels so unwieldy and challenging. And like, we cannot praise the club and Edu and Arteta enough for the bold and courageous moves they made this summer to really accelerate a rebuild. Now, look, you don't wind up praising them without having to point out the criticism that the club had gone many years sticking plasters on the problem, sure. But like, we don't have to look back at that. We can simply say that finally we took our medicine. And you know what this is a great lesson about? It's a great lesson about that actually taking your medicine can make you healthy really quick. Maybe not in my case, but in the case of the club, because I will raise my hand and say I liked the strategy of getting younger this summer. I had questions about some of the signings and was encouraged by others, but my feeling was White would take time to bed in. Ramsdale would be one for the future, maybe next season or later this season. Sam be one for the future. Tavares one for the future, or more of a punt option. That Tomiyasu would be this season, obviously. And on. And you look at Odegaard this season, but like, it hasn't been that way at all. And we're going into some games with all these guys starting and playing well. And it just feels like a fresh Arsenal. And so this whole discussion just has a lightness about it now that's been missing. And, I said this on another podcast, but like, it doesn't hurt when you look at the table and the situation's not bad. Fans want to be able to dream. You want to look at the table and dream of top 4, sure. And yeah, you know what? We all laugh. Title, haha. I mean, no, it's not a title season probably, but like, imagine being at this international break and looking at the top position at the table, and it's not out of reach. I mean, we play Liverpool next. If we beat Liverpool, you can't say we aren't a title contender. I mean, look, if you believe in data and if you believe in reality, then you probably can say that. And beating Liverpool might be a bridge too far for right now. It's just the point that having this stuff to dream about is really exciting. So we'll get into a few more individual performances that I think are important. But if we're going to talk about being excited and lighter and rejuvenated and refreshed, Clive, what do we got to talk about? If we're talking about being lighter and rejuvenated and refreshed.
I forgot. I always forget. Go on then. Get on with it.
I love your open disdain for the sponsor that so greatly supports our podcast and is Manscaped. That's right. Holidays have come early. Ho, 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 gentlemen. That's what it says here in my copy. But also ladies, women. This is for everybody. It's for everybody. My wife, she uses this stuff. Not that you need to know that. The holidays came early here at Manscaped, the leading men's hygiene brand. Manscaped just launched new products, including their all-new ultra-premium body wash and 2-in-1 shampoo and conditioner. It's time to give yourself, or someone who needs it, the gift of beautiful skin, hair, and balls this holiday season. Go to manscaped.com and use code ArsenalVision for 20% off and free shipping. Why am I reading their copy? Because sometimes as I read through it, it just leads to really fun side points. Things like untrimmed pubes are a thing of the past, and it's possible you have Santa's beard in your pants. That is what they have as a talking point. Now, I'm going to say just this. I got to disagree with the sponsor in this respect. If you are able to grow Santa's beard in your pants, don't shave it. Don't shave it. Because that is epic, and like that's worthy of praise. There comes a point at which you're doing something special, and just leave it. It's time to leave your significant other some cookies and milk at the bottom of your chimney. I want to meet the person who writes the talking points. I would like to interview them. Like, I'm willing to bet that there's enough listeners that would actually want to listen to an interview with the person who writes this copy. Look, the point is, the Lawnmower 4.0 is the best product I have ever used for body trimming. And we do that. Like, it's just so funny, right? Like, there's some things we do, and when you have a good product that does it, it's better than a bad product. If you're a cook and you get like a new pan or a new knife, like if you're someone who cooks and you get like a great new knife, like, why was I using that crappy knife all this time? This is amazing. Weird to talk about knives juxtaposed against this topic. But the point is, like, when you get a product that does something really well, you're like, why did I use that crappy product for so long? That old razor, that old trimmer. You've got skin-safe technology, a long battery life. You can use it in the shower. It's wet, dry, has a very long battery life, as I mentioned, because I am on a lot of medication. A light, trimmer guards, all kinds of stuff. It is beautiful. It just charges by just resting it in the dock, so it's really cool. Contact or wireless charging, which is fun. All that, plus they've got the body products. They've got the ear and nose hair trimmer. That thing. They'll forgive me for being a little off my game today. At least Arsenal aren't. Anyway, go to manscaped.com, promo code ArsenalVision. 20% off is a lot, and free global shipping is a lot. So, just do that. Do that. You'll like it. Okay. Clive, is that enough of that?
Plenty.
Yeah, I thought you'd say that. Okay, good. Well, onward and upward. Paul, there's been weird games with Benjamin White where he has defended manfully and not been great on the ball. I think the Burnley game comes to mind. There have been games where he's been great on the ball and defensively a little suspect. And then there are games like this where he's just the fucking man. And he creates the goal for Emile Smith Rowe by pinching up, the thing that we sort of think of as his thing he did for Brighton, right? Pinching up, being front-footed defense, nicking the ball, carrying it forward. He pinches up, carries the ball forward, loses it, but no big deal because Smith Rowe's there to slam it in. But this was another game where Ben White started to put it all together. And I think maybe we didn't see the best of what he could be on the ball early on in the season, but we're starting to see it now, the carrying, the punched passes between the lines. And I think in the absence of Thomas Partey being there, he even added, he's doing some of the stuff that Partey was doing last season in terms of quickening the tempo, taking, when we regain possession, turning it into attack. This for me was a 10 out of 10 Ben White game. Sorry, Benjamin White game. I know you will not follow suit in that. So do you want to heap the praise on him that I think he so richly deserves?
Yeah, Whitey was great.
Shout for man of the match?
For sure. Football's more fun with Ben White. We'll play better football with Ben White. The stepping into midfield thing, in this case, as you highlighted, the goal came from him nipping, like this was the final third, and he nipped up there ahead of the midfielder and the striker in the area for the ball, nips in ahead, dribbles past a couple, loses the ball in a dangerous for them area, which is often the case when he'll drive forward. Like 1 out of 2 drives, he may end up getting tackled, but he'll get tackled by 2 or 3 central midfielders because he's the free man. That's the beauty of those forward runs from the centre back. And you got the total football thing of centre backs stepping into midfield, midfielders stepping into the back line, and that kind of dynamism moves around. Like their midfielders don't know what's happening to them at that point. So it starts, even if that particular drive doesn't come off, it shakes them up. And in this case, the ball squirts loose and Smith Rowe jumps on it and puts it in the back of the net again. And so you got this energy that comes from a Ben White. And then in the same game, defensively, he's like, him and Tommy Yasu are off the charts with tackles, headers. Like Ben White has 12 clearances. Now, clearances isn't always the best sign of a game going well for you, but it's a sign that Ben White was in the right places at the right times, doing defensive work while helping our attacking end of the pitch too. But he 12 clearances. The next best was like 6. So we talked about it on the Instant Reaction podcast. The reason he's not a midfielder, but he's a defender, is because he absolutely fucking loves the duel, the battle. It's why I was never too worried about this whole thing about him. He's not great on headers, or he's not that tall, or whatever. He loves the battle. He loves the duel. And not in the same way, we were talking about this, myself and Clive, not in the same way Gabriel does. He's cleverer. He loves the reach around. He loves the kind of nipping ahead of the reach around. That tackle where he gets the leg the other side of the guy.
Okay, that's what that is. Yeah, no, that's what I thought it was too. Okay,
it really confuses the attacker, the reach around. They look a little stunned for 30, 45 seconds. They feel a little at odds with themselves.
Fair enough.
But he's just a different kind of defender. And then you look at him in the context of Gabriel and Tomiyasu on either side. I also think this was low-key one of Tomiyasu's best games. He absolutely stuffed Dennis on his side. And very good on the attacking end. And like those things come together when your partner is doing his business. You feel much more comfortable in your
I think
game.
That's so important, Paul.
Yep.
I think that as a partnership, I said this in the instant reaction pod, so apologies for repeating myself to people who listen to that, but like, and I know most people fast forward my section anyway, but like, I think central defenders can be so good that they carry a weaker partner, but when the styles complement each other, that's when it's best. I think Ben White, knowing he's got an athletic, physically dominant, technically gifted defender covering for him behind him, he has the green light to go do the things that he really excels at.
Yeah, he's just a baller. And like his passing, it's not just the passing you make, it's the selections you make. And he's super intelligent. He's a really good reading of what the game needs now. Like, I like Rob Holding, and he can pull off a switch pass and he can pull off a pass upfield, but he doesn't have that reading of what the game needs now. Slow, fast, kind of almost the La Pausa thing of if I put my foot on the ball right now, what does that do to move people around? What's the game need right now? We're just going to play much, much better football because Ben White is our right centre back, and because he steps into midfield, and because he's the free man when he steps into midfield, and he moves those guys around. He wins his battles. Occasionally, he'll do something like where you say, that was really dumb. He's a gambler, but gamblers pay off.
Yeah, I agree. Tim, quickly, anything you want to add on the Ben White-Gabriel partnership? And then maybe we can talk about a special new addition to that back line.
Yeah, sure. I'm really liking the look of it now. I was never worried about White, but did say wasn't that impressed initially. But for me, it's much more. I'm much more impressed by the driving out from the back line than even the passing. I think that's got to be like the next evolution in the centre back, because obviously we've seen them kind of turn into these ball players over the years, but. Then there's a reaction to that, people blocking your passing lanes and people even marking you. I see that in the women's team. People mark Leah Williamson because she's so good at passing out from the back. So one of the things she's worked on this season is driving out and dribbling, and that's exactly what Ben White's doing. And we saw it as well for the build-up to the goal. I think that's such an interesting facet for a centre-half to have. And even when I think of a lot of the top centre-halves, I'm not sure they quite have that. And I just see that as the next evolution in the kind of the top class centre halves game. And Ben White already has it.
Yeah, well said. So can we talk Nuno Tavares?
Sure.
Is that right? Is that even close?
Yeah.
Tavares. You sometimes, I hate when I say you when I mean me. I sometimes am guilty of learning something about a player early on and then having that prior stick. You know what I mean? Like, so Nuno, what is he? He's fast. He's powerful. He has a good shot. He's raw. He's rough around the edges. He's going to make mistakes. He's not technically sound. And so that becomes the heuristic. That becomes the profile in your mind. But that's not him. Like he can carry the ball at his feet comfortably, lay it off, make those little 5-yard passes, play the longer passes. When he chases back defensively, he uses his body well to shoulder players off the ball. They don't get around him. He's a really special player, and he's added something to our game. And I think I don't want this to be a straight comparison with Tierney, because Tierney was given this role to sort of get ahead and play in that upper left wing to deliver crosses and to maybe pull a player over to him so that the left winger, like Smith Rowe, could cut inside more. And actually, we saw Nuno do a bit more of that role in this game. But what Nuno has in his game that I really like, he doesn't try to go to the outside as much as Tierney does. He'll bring the ball back inside. And when he brings the ball back inside, I think he really drags defenders out of position. Smith Rowe can run around the outside of that, and that works. The other thing he does is Tierney puts in a better cross, but I think Tavares has this really good like cutback, this pullback that he does. There was the one I think he pulled back to Lacazette, laid off to Sambi Lakanga for the driven shot that Foster just about saves. I think he has made a very big difference in the way we play. And I'm very interested to see how Arteta navigates the competition there. Now, I am someone who has admittedly, Tim, as you probably know, sometimes been overly worried about competition, where actually at a good club, at a big club, you should be happy about competition. Would it be handy if we had maybe an extra game for players to rotate a bit so everyone stays happy? Maybe, but it is what it is right now. So do you have maybe evolving thoughts on what Nuno has brought to the game and the extent to which we are a different side with him, or maybe he's been the beneficiary of us playing a different way since he's come in?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of both. I think just to pick up on your last point there about not having enough games for some of these players, that can make the environment even more competitive when it's like, oh, I'll get a Europa League game on Thursday, don't worry about it. And sometimes what you can develop there, and I think we've seen this at Arsenal, you develop like the cup team and the league team, and I'm not sure that's always that healthy. And I'm not sure it always gets the best out of either team. Whereas now, it's like throwing some food in the middle of a load of lions. There's less food there now, so better elbow your way to the front, hadn't you? Rather than just waiting and seeing what the leftovers are. There are no leftovers anymore. So I think that has brought an interesting dynamic. I think there are a couple of things going on here. I think Tavares, it's weird. He doesn't look like the player that played the first couple of games. Like all of that kind of, I don't know whether it was just like a perception thing, but all of that rawness seems to have gone. Like he's much more like he's kept the things that he's good at, but like what I considered anyway to be the rough edges just seem to have like disappeared like really, really quickly. I've never really seen that before. And I don't know, maybe he was just trying really hard to impress. And he's got a little bit of a flow with a few games. I do think also the system has helped. I do think that partnership with Smith Rowe on the left has really, really helped as well. I do think the fact that he can drive inside is brilliant, and that's why a two-footed player will always have a bit of an advantage because they can go both ways. And what we're seeing with a couple of these players, just talking about Benjamin White kind of dribbling out. And now you've got Tavares who can go outside or inside. These are unstructured players, and it's not because they are unstructured. It is because they do things to the structure of the other team. So if they do this, so if they're not like just, Ben, because even David Luiz, like brilliant passer of the ball, but it's coming. He's going to get the ball and he's going to whack it cross field. That's still a valuable weapon, but he's going to do that. If David Luiz had the dribble as well, that then you've got a decision to make, because usually what teams would do is they think, okay, all right, we'll just defend the pass because we know it's coming. Whereas if it's like, okay, so I'm blocking the passing lane, but what if he goes past me? That produces doubt in opponents, and it's similar with Tavares, right? It's kind of right. He might not go down the line. Actually, he might drive inside because he's actually got a right foot on him. And when he does that, that is unstructured play. That is unpatterned play. And sometimes quite a lot of the time, that's very, very difficult to deal with, particularly in, I think, the modern game, which is so kind of choreographed. I was just talking about, that's why I basically think the game's reached such a state of choreography that the guys who can disturb structure are going to be so valuable. And that to me is dribbling. Like this is the age for dribblers to really emerge. And Tavares is a really, really good dribbler, really good at driving inside and outside. We're seeing it with Benjamin White as well. And both of those players, I think, have really added something to the team. And also you've got to say Smith Rowe, I think he's playing brilliantly at the moment, and Tavares is certainly benefiting from that. But at the same time, you can put it the other way around. You can say, well, in the 3 games Tavares has played now, Smith Rowe scored in all of them, and he deserves credit for that as well.
Yeah, we're going to get to Smith Rowe, of course. Clive, I want to let you add on Tavares. So one thing I'll say too is like, again, styles complement each other, right? So you've got a tricky, more natural, wide attacking forward on the right with maybe more of a defensive-oriented right back I don't want to sell Tomiyasu short, but I think that's fair. Whereas on the left, you've got maybe more of a more central midfielder, more of a number 10 type player on the left. And then you've got this fullback next to him that's almost more like a winger and can dribble a guy, can beat a guy for pace, up the wing or inside. And so the partnerships on the left and on the right are really interesting in how they enhance what we're able to do on each side. They feel very balanced. This team starts to feel like it's been put together, not in terms of who's a good player I can add, but who's a good player I can add that complements the pieces I'm going to put around him. And that is, that's sort of the 3D chess, the part that maybe is sometimes hard to see when you're just looking at transfer targets saying, why this guy, why that guy? Well, because these guys kind of all fit together in a special way. Clive, you want to add on Tavares? And then we should probably talk about the Hale End boys.
Yeah, I think it's not so much Tavares. I think it's how we've recruited this year. It's interesting, Arteta's been critiqued about being overly structured. And I've never agreed with that because I think coaching is about providing assistance to your player, positionally making sure we're covered around the pitch, we're connected. I think the way you coach will automatically drive a certain structure. Our critique before, for me, and I've been quite consistent about my player criticism, has been about the one dimension of our players which forces us into a structure. It forces us to protect people, to hide people, to pick certain systems, because certain players did not have the two-footedness, didn't have the carrying ability, can't solve problems on the pitch when they're pressed on the ball. They can't get out and use their weak foot. They can't switch play with their weak foot. They can't switch the point of the attack consistently. And the way football is at the moment, the people with the highest touches are our people at the back door of our pitch, of our team, sorry. So this is why I get frustrated with some data sometimes. Every game, the centre-backs or the right-back has the most touches. Right? So why would you want those players to be brilliant on the ball? Right? But we accept people who are not brilliant on the ball. And when we sign them, we critique them because they can't head. Right? Or we think they can't head. Look at how the game is going. Look who's having the most touches: Manchester United, Man City, everybody else. The first thing Patrick Vieira did was change his centre-backs. The first thing Pep did was change his centre-backs and his goalkeeper. And finally we've been able to do these things. And the specifics of these players' technique has allowed them to, this is probably what Tim was trying to get to, is to play outside of structure when a problem is presented. They can now do something else. And this is why we're better. It's down to player quality and their specifics, what they can actually do. So when Tavares is pressed on his left foot, he can chop onto his right foot and drive inside, or he can go on the outside. The same for Tomiyasu. Ben White, left-footed passes over the top into the left side channel from the right side defence. Right? We just can't do this stuff before. On his wrong foot, Gabriel can drive. He can switch. Right? So we got Sambi who can carry, but he can still do the rat-a-tat on any does. Maitland-Niles, an all-round footballer. This is what we want. More all-round, complete technical players that can solve the problems that you're faced with on the day. And whether it's carrying, whether it's flipping, whether it's passing, whether it's creating transitions, quick to the press, quick, much more intense to take the ball off people. This is what the good teams have. Lots of these players. And we're finally working it out. So the one-dimensional guys have gone, who forced us into systems that we didn't really want to play, and we could be easily stopped because their inability to have enough technical skills to solve that problem, it was costing us. It really was costing us and forcing us and making us so easy to scout and so easy to stop. And this is where the club deserve massive credit, because now I look at the horizon and I'm looking at it with such excitement because these players are still developing their skills and I don't know where it's going to go. And I love to look ahead. I don't know where it's going to go, but it's going to be so interesting to see when we do add the forwards and the centre midfield depth where this team could go to, because I think it could be really exciting.
Can I just add something really quickly on that? I don't know if you listened to Tifo Football podcast last week. They did an episode and they were talking about Aaron Ramsdale, actually, and they were saying whoever scouted him for Arsenal deserves a lot of credit, because they did a video on him and they were like, there's nothing in the data that suggests he can do what Arsenal want. And they were saying, like, the kind of passes he's making at the moment, like, he hadn't done that before. So, they were basically saying full credit to the scouting team, because they've obviously done a bit more than just look at his videos. That they've been speaking to people about what he can do with the ball.
Yeah, and go ahead. Mm-hmm.
Sorry, mate, because there is a video come out today on that, Tim, funny enough, just a little 5-minute on Aaron Ramsdale. Maybe it's part of a bigger video, but I think that's a genius signing. And I think, I actually did a tweet on it today, I think it's a soft factor signing as well as a data signing. So either he's been taught incredibly quickly to do these drill passes down the middle. But I also think what he's brought to the team emotionally, and Tim, you used to love Chesney, and again, emotionally what he brought to the team as a character used to permeate itself to the crowds, right? So sometimes the goalkeeper is the closest one to the crowd. And I think it's a very important thing. Same with David Seaman. He had that connection. Jens Lehmann had that connection to the crowd. And I think it's a genius signing. I really do. When I spoke to James about it, I said it before, and he said they were very interested in his character. He was player of the year at these last 2 or 3 clubs. And so there's something about him. And I thought I gave him a break, but to be honest, no, I don't think any of us could really see the impact he's having to the club, not just how he plays, but emotionally. I think it's a genius bit of work.
Yeah, I mean, look, the silliest thing in the world to do would be to relitigate the Ramsdale wars about why people were against it, why people weren't. Were there people that expressed their opinion in a toxic way or too forcefully? Of course, that's just how it works. Were there people that had, I think, reasonably held concerns about why we were targeting that player at that price at that moment? Yes. Has it worked out brilliantly and been transformational and an important move that the club absolutely got right and deserves credit for? Yes. And that is brilliant. And I think there's a meme out there that, Clive, you're sort of hitting on, because I think most of your contributions are reducible to memes. It's a picture of a football pitch, and it's got the defensive area shaded, and it says, in this area, players just like tackle and head the ball. And it's got the offensive area shaded, the attacking third. It's like, in this area, players just score goals. And then it's got the middle area shaded, and it's like, ball magically progresses through this area. And it's sort of a meme designed to, make fun of how people don't understand midfielders, and that like all anybody cares about is tackles, assists, and goals when actually ball progression is critical. But I don't think that's just the purview of the midfield. And what we've seen, to your point, Clive, is that players that can quicken your progression up the pitch matter. Like there's a new stat, expected threat, and it sort of measures the way players, the distance sort of traveled through zones and how much threat that adds, because you can actually say statistically, actually you can't say that apparently, that as you move through certain zones, your likelihood of scoring a goal increases a certain amount. And players like Ben White, who can do that, and Ramsdale, who can do that in ways that other players have not done it for us, make a big, big difference. The crazy thing is how much we were worried about losing David Luiz. Not a lot of hand-wringing about that now, is there? So anyway, Paul, look, we are 57 minutes or so into this podcast, and I feel a sense of shame, which I usually do around the hour mark of the podcast, that we have not mentioned Saka or Smith Rowe. And maybe specifically just that absolutely epic goal celebration of them lying on the ground together in repose that we were robbed of when the goal was ruled out. I should mention at this moment, news has broken as we record that Emile Smith Rowe has been called up to the England team. Mm-hmm. Full England international now. Yep. Emile Smith Rowe. Woohoo. So huge congratulations to him. Well deserved. There is going to be a segment of the fan base that wants to debate, is Smith Rowe better than Saka? Is he playing better than Saka? Who the hell cares? They're both absolutely fantastic. The club is fortunate to have them. It is a staggering success for the academy. I think that Smith Rowe's goal will lead to him overshadowing Saka in this game, who I actually thought was brilliant. He has a way every time he's isolated on the right of doing a thing that I think Pepe struggles to do. Unfortunately, you have to create that binary all the time of just being able to beat one guy to open something up for someone else. And I think he's really intelligent how he does that. Could he maybe just be a little bit more dangerous with the finishing? Could he add that final ball? Yes. It's easy to forget that Saka is actually a bit younger than Smith Rowe because he's played so much. Smith Rowe's the older player. But man, Emile Smith Rowe and the intention he has to get onto a ball and score goals is something we have needed, and he's added it. So I thought this was a brilliant game for both of them. But it is Smith Rowe who wins it. So you want to maybe just heap some praise on two players who as I think Clive even maybe said it in the instant reaction pod, like it is the young players carrying this team. It is the Smith Rowes and the Sakas and Nuno Tavares and Ben White and Ramsey. It's the young players carrying this team forward.
Yeah, we have the youngest team in the league by some measure. We have the youngest manager.
Wait, Clive, was it your headline? You'll win everything with kids?
Yeah.
I love that. little bit of a takeaway from the instant reaction pod there. You'll win everything with kids. Brilliant. Mm-hmm.
Which is kind of like the other thing that came to mind this morning when I was thinking about it was Wenger talking about kids will cost you points. Like they'll make mistakes. And this is aimed at Saka and Smith Rowe. I don't think they're going to cost us points. But we're playing such a young team. Like there's going to be moments, and Lacazette had one or two in this, one in particular where he lost the ball in front of our penalty area and they were through on us. Like there will be mistakes, but I don't think they're going to come from Saka and Smith Rowe. Fortunately, they're at the most dangerous end of the pitch. There's a symmetry as well about this because they've both ended up playing the wide positions. And they both have license to float into that kind of 8-10 free zone. The kind of I guess channels 2 and 4, if you want to look at it like that. Those little pockets on the corners of boxes on either side. Smith Rowe comes a little deeper usually to pick up the ball when needed. Saka stays a little higher, but there's a beautiful symmetry about what they do on each side of the pitch. And they sit together for breakfast before games. They plan their celebrations out together. They push each other on. Bukayo Saka has been putting a word in with Gareth Southgate that there's a young man at our club. He really should get him along onto the squad because he's a good character. There's just a beautiful symmetry about how they play, how their careers are going. There's even a little bit of complimentary in that Saka is great in possession. He has this thing where he floats on the ball and the defender has no clue which side he's going to take him on. And he moves us into really dangerous areas for cutbacks for people like Smith Rowe. And I think that's going to be a relationship, Saka to Smith Rowe, that we're going to see over the next few years. Smith Rowe's fitness and the robustness of him has come on massively over the last 12 months. And Arsenal used to be just synonymous with don't love a player. Those whom the gods love die young. Don't love a player because Wilshere, Ramsey, Fabregas, it doesn't matter, Rosicky, whoever you love the most, the gods will take and inflict endless injuries on. I'm doing it again, aren't I? With my jinxing.
I hate to constantly reference the instant reaction pod. And those of you who have no interest in our Patreon, like we love you for being here. Thank you. And those of you who do, we love you too. We just love everybody. But everybody love everybody. But Paul deserves to be called out for reprehensible behavior because Paul repeatedly, multiple times on the IR pod said, Ben White never gets injured like that.
Yeah.
And you
I don't believe in your magical
can't let him
thinking.
get away with that. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But let me phrase it in a way that doesn't call the gods into action. Okay. The club has done a tremendous job guiding him forward so that he is fit and robust. He's playing basically 90 minutes all the time. He plays our Carabao Cup games when we need a filler inner because who was it? Odegaard had a niggle or something. Loves a niggle, that fella. Here are these two guys playing every game. My big concern about us playing so much Saka and Smith Rowe was they didn't have the numbers. They didn't have the contributions last year. Great players. We loved them on the pitch. We loved how we played when they were on the pitch. But the numbers weren't stacking up to the level you would need that if we're going for top 4, top 6, and those guys are playing it game in, game out, it needs to come with the contributions, the numbers. And it's there now. And Smith Rowe in this game, like he spins one in that just missed the corner of the goal. The last game, he swoops in like this one and puts it in the net. But he had 2 or 3 other positions where he could have done it in the last game. It's not a one-off. And I think we who have always thought Smith Rowe would get goals is because we've seen across the board, Smith Rowe keeps getting into these Aaron Ramsey type positions, arriving in the box a little late, but perfectly timed. It's so simple that you look at it and say, why doesn't everybody do it? And yet very few players have that arrive in the right spot and then keep it simple, make a clean connection, get it in the right spot, and let the ball do its work. I mean, I think this one has a little deflection, but it doesn't matter. He's hit it right. He's hit it hard. He's kept it low. If he does that throughout the season, throughout his career, he's going to get a hatful of goals. And there's just a beautiful symmetry watching these two players come through.
Yeah, I love it. I love everything about it. It's so enjoyable, and they are so likable and so good. Tim,
there are set piece guys too. Sorry, before.
Yeah, you're right, and it's made a big difference.
Yeah.
Can we just say the short corner is dead? Long live the in swinger or whatever. Like fucking hell. Tim, before we move on, I'm trying to contextualize like where I think Smith Rowe and Saka land in the sort of pantheon of elite academy prospects. I think they've played enough now that we can sort of say they're going to make it and they look like big stars. And granted, things can always derail. I'm not going to go full Paul and be like, they never got injured or any of that stuff. But like, yeah, Jack Wilshere, obviously that failed to materialize. Other than that, I mean, where do you go for an academy prospect of this level? Ashley Cole. I mean, you can go back to obviously like the Merson Tony Adams days, but like, what do you think? I mean, where do these guys sit right now in terms of the hierarchy of academy players with seemingly limitless potential?
Yeah, I think Ashley Cole is a really good kind of analogy there. Hopefully, neither one or both of them ends up soiling their Arsenal legacy in quite that way. But
crashing their car over 40k a week. Or
yeah. Although, to be fair, if I were them and they were being offered 55k a week now, I probably would crash my car.
Yeah, a fair point. I don't think there's any danger of that. Don't worry.
No. But yeah, like in terms of like the actual quality of player, I mean, Ashley Cole was world class, and he was world class for a decade or more. So that's I'd say the benchmark for an Arsenal academy player. But I mean, in terms of an Arsenal academy player that could become like a real club legend, I mean, again, Tony Adams is probably the absolute benchmark there of a player who stayed for his whole career. Not sure how realistic that is in this day and age, but yeah, it's amazing. Do you know what? Actually, I was thinking the other day. I was thinking for years. I said like, how fucking lucky are Spurs that they just had Harry Kane come through their academy, just like £100 million striker.
Look what it changed for them. They were able to win absolutely nothing during his period. That's brilliant. No, I'm kidding. I mean, if we want to set aside rivalry, they made a Champions League final and finished top four a lot thanks to one academy player being really good.
Exactly. They, whether we like it or not, they became contenders. Now, we can laugh about the fact that they were never more than contenders, but they went up a couple of levels because they kind of lucked out that Harry Kane came through their academy. And now maybe it's happening to us. Maybe we've got two players, but the way they're playing at the moment, in fact, this system, I mean, it really reminds me. And again, I'm not setting the quality of these players against the quality of those players, but like system wise, it's very Invincibles, isn't it? Like with Saka kind of coming in, Smith Rowe coming in, both kind of coming inside quite a lot, having two fairly solid central midfielders, a second striker dropping in as more of a 10. I mean, system wise, it's a bit of a throwback. But I think what it's really done as well, this system, it just enables them both to come inside. And I think that is for both of them, that is their prime position. I think Saka's prime position is out on the right but coming inside, and Smith Rowe's prime position is out on the left but coming inside. And we're seeing that now. And just for Smith Rowe as well, again, those of you were listening to this podcast last season, I said he will score goals because that's what he used to do in the youth team. And usually you find guys that come through, once they're comfortable and they feel established, they start bringing out those traits again, because he was scoring goals in the youth team because he was the best player in the youth team. And then you kind of come into the team and maybe you defer a little bit and you don't take on those shots and you think, okay, I'm in the team. I've got to not take risks and things like that. But once you feel comfortable, once you've got the number 10 on your back, once you've got that new contract, you start taking those shots on. That shot he had for the goal, Smith Rowe, there's no chance he takes that last season as a shot. I think he'd try and pass that. And all the data shows he's doing all of those things more. He's dribbling a lot more, shooting a lot more, passing less, actually having fewer touches. He's really trying to make the difference. And when you look at his direct goal contributions this season, he's up there with some big names who play similar positions. And it really is a pleasure at the moment. There's some things that the club, it looks like have done well in terms of their recruitment. But these two, they're the real gold stars around it. And you can tell that that's what the fans feel as well. These two, all of the other kind of, some of the slightly younger players we've bought we feel good about those players at the moment, but these are the players we feel great about. And I think rightly so. And I'd just say on Saka, I'd heard a lot of people say they didn't think he played very well, in the Villa game and the Leicester games. And I was thinking, really? I thought he was great in both of those games. I really did. I think the amount of threat he creates, I love that delivery he's got off the right where he kind of chops into on his left foot. And like that is a much better area to hit crosses from, like the corner of the box. And Saka's delivery from the corner of the box is so good. That's much better than walloping them in from the touchline. And I just love the way he's able to get turned and kind of knife his way inside and go towards the box and commit players. It's such a massive skill. And I look around the Premier League and I just don't see many players like that.
Yeah. Clive, I'm betting you don't have any interest in this topic, but I mean, can I coax you into discussing Saka and Smith Rowe at all?
Yeah, well, the guys have really done it. But Tim's last point there on Saka was spot on. His ability to escape off the line, knowing when to carry and drive, knowing when to get rid of it and then go and follow it and get it back. I think when the ball goes out there, it just comes out from him and we've still got it. And I'm a fan of Pepe, but when the ball goes into him, I'm not sure what's coming out. Do you know what I mean? And I think that's a big thing. So if there's a lack of certainty of what's coming out and when it's coming out, then you don't move. But Saka's got this great skill of knowing exactly when to release it accurately and how to release it. And the only thing left for him to do is to, you know what, mates, you don't have to release it. Just bang it into the net on occasions because he's got that too. And I think that will come where Smith Rowe's just discovered that, but I think it will come for him once he chops inside that left foot. Just bang it. Stop passing it to idiots, right? Bang it yourself, and that's what I would tell him. And but yeah, it's there's a lot of young players that are coming through at Arsenal, just to broaden it slightly, that are showing amazing potential, and they've got no better standard bearers than these two. Just showing the way, and that's all we want, right? They are just leading the way, and the club is prepared to play young players. This is the place to be at the moment for if you're a young player.
Destination of choice.
Absolutely. And this is the place to be if you're a young player right now. Because you got a chance. You got a real chance. And Smith Rowe and Saka are the proof.
Yeah. I mean, you said it. You'll win everything with kids. And I mean, maybe during this international break, we will talk a little bit about what the ceiling is on this rejuvenation this season. Because I think we're getting to the point where we can sort of maybe start to think about what is really possible, maybe even on this podcast. But before we do that, and it sounds like my house has just collapsed, so hopefully that's not the case. Paul, let's just touch on the Aubameyang performance. I think we handled this in the past in different ways. We've always sort of said if Aubameyang's engaged and working hard and pressing and running and getting chances, then that's what you want from him and it'll all come. I do think, though, like it is fair to start to say that maybe he's not able to, or maybe it's form, maybe able, whatever, to do some of the things that he might have done in the past. There was a moment late in the game, people will talk about the missed penalty. It was bad. I don't think necessarily he should be the primary penalty taker, but like penalties get saved. I thought that one was too close to the keeper. So be it. He has the touch that ruins the Saka goal. Again, I'm not sure you can blame him for trying to be involved in that position. and he has the studs on the ball that leads to Odegaard's shot being offside. Again, can you blame a striker for those instincts in that situation? And also, is it totally clear that Odegaard's shot is definitely going in? I mean, I think it possibly hits the post and bounces out. So a lot of that is just misfortune. But there's stuff that I saw, like when Saka delivers the in-swinger late in the game and Aubameyang doesn't get his foot on it. His movement is great, as usual, but the burst isn't there, the leg extension. We've seen a few times this season where he doesn't get his leg on a ball that you think, gosh, could he have gotten there? So I do sort of look at him as a player who is still trying his heart out, but I think sometimes we overly praise trying when the reason some of these guys get $350K a week is to also not just do the trying part, but do the executing part and be amazing. I cannot fault the effort and the application. I do think that it is fair to maybe start to say that some of the elite, and I know I use the word elite a lot, that needs to go in a mug, striker output from him is maybe just not quite there, or am I putting dirt on the grave too soon? What do you think about the performance generally and my tendency to overreact?
Look, he's a little out of form. And
the application's there, right? We can set that aside. Kudos to him for it.
Under the covers, he does quite a bit of work even in this game, getting back, nipping balls, sewing things together, has some nice touches. But the top line stuff, the stuff that catches the eye, the stuff he's there for, the finishing, etc. Like, he takes a very deep breath for that penalty. I'd like to go back and have a look at a few penalties he's scored if he always takes as deep a breath as that. There's no way he'll be the same athlete he was when he was 27, 28. I don't think it should matter. I mean, leg extensions, Jesus, I'm sure he can get there. Can he absolutely out-sprint every player on the pitch like he could in his 20s? No, but he didn't need to. He still got the movement. He still got the smarts. I think at this stage it's more psychological. If it starts getting to him that his position in football, if you get that funk that your career is plateauing, then I think that's more the concern than will Aubameyang's physique hold him back. I mean, he can do things that Ronaldo, Cavani, and other players playing at the top level, doing incredible things, can't do anymore, but he could. I mean, he's got so much physicality in his game. As a striker, like, you're always going to go for that Odegaard moment there. Obviously, you want him to know he's offside, but he's so desperate to get a goal at that point. Strikers need to go for those moments. And we can look at it on the camera and say, oh, well, would it have gone, here we are debating, would it have gone in or not? A striker must never ask himself, might this go in or might it not? If there's just the slightest hint that he can turn it in because it might not be going in, you don't blink, you go for it. He should know he's offside, that's the only thing, but he's desperate to get on the sheet and to kind of rectify his moment earlier in the game, and that's understandable. I wouldn't say I'm not worried about Aubameyang, but I don't see that there's anything here for me to jump to and say, oh, it's definitely this, that, and the other, rather than a bit of a funk. I'd be very worried if Lacazette wasn't playing. And at the moment, we seem to need to play two strikers. We kind of covered that in a different sense. But if we had just had the young lads and Aubameyang, I don't know that there's enough thrust there in this game for us to win it. Lacazette plays such a key role in gluing it all together. It's definitely a bit of an off game for Aubameyang, and I'm worried, but I don't think I'm anywhere near thinking, oh, it's the decline has started. I think it's just a bit of a funk, and the challenge with it, ironically, the way we're playing, which is quite counter-attacky, quite not super possession oriented, should help Aubameyang in that there should be transitions, broken play, etc. And yet it's not quite playing out that way. It's Lacazette who's really coming to the fore and showing how he can glue play together and get us into the box and make things happen. So I'm worried about Aubameyang, but I don't think it's the decline, air quotes. I don't think that's the issue.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard because, like, scoring goals is hard, and players will go through games where they don't do it. And on a game like this, where it seems like every touch in a critical moment hurt the team, like just through bad luck, right? Like, he has the penalty, he misses it. If he scores that, we're talking about he's on a really good run of goal scoring, actually. Yeah. But he doesn't, and so that looks bad. And he has the touch that robbed Saka of a goal, and he has the touch that robs Odegaard of a goal. And so on the day, all of his contributions just wind up looking like negatives. So it's easy to overstate the negative aspect of his performance in this game. For me, it's the other things, that just the little moments where I think I might have expected Aubameyang in the past to do something more with situations than he maybe has. There have been some near post moments where he didn't quite, make the shot I would have expected, or burst past a player when he was sort of in a foot race. But in terms of the application and the hard running that he's putting in, I don't think anything has changed. And certainly we are pressing more. We are a little more front-footed. And as a result, I think fatigue is becoming more of an issue. It says a lot that Lacazette lasts about an hour and Aubameyang is playing 90 minutes every game, or, thereabouts. So something to that. I don't think we need to go any further on Oba. I think we can start to wind things down here, Tim. I want to talk quickly about two things in this game that we can get out before we just look ahead to what's next. And that, firstly, is just Watford's approach. I mean, I don't want – look, I'm fine with people thinking it was wrong of us to not put the ball out. Those people are dumb and bad and silly, and they're wrong. I also don't care, because if you think we won this game by shithousing our way to a winning goal, even better, even funnier. Do you have anything to say on that tempest in a teapot nonsense? I mean, Sarr clearly wasn't injured.
Yeah.
He clearly didn't need treatment. Watford were kicking the crap out of us all game and then throwing themselves to the ground and staying down, looking for a respite from what was becoming, I think, a bit of a battering in terms of territory anyway. So no sympathy on my end. Do you see it any differently?
No, not at all. It's one of the things that winds me up the most, this kind of custom of kicking the ball out of play for players who are clearly not really injured. Like, players know when someone goes down, when they're really hurt, and when they're not. And he wasn't. He didn't even need the physio to come on, so it just shows that. And we all know that they were just trying it on. They were just trying to get like a little, just take the momentum out, which they'd been doing all game, which, fine, whatever. But yeah, you don't get to complain when you get a bit back like that. And if anything, I hope that kind of inoculates them against doing it again, or makes them think twice about it as a standard tactic, because it's one of those things that's policed by players. Teams take advantage of it because they can't get in trouble with the referee for it. And from our side, even if you do think it's a bit bastardy, and maybe it is, I don't agree, but maybe it is, fine, because for too long there has definitely been this perception of Arsenal being, too soft or whatever, or too nice. And
can I address that just real quick? Sorry to cut across you, but it seems like you're always the victim of this. I apologize. But like, pundits would have hammered us for being too nice in the past. Mm-hmm. And then they're going to hammer you for being, cagey or, you clever. Like, the point is, don't try to please the pundits. They'll find a reason. That's what they do.
Yeah, precisely. We don't really have to worry about that. And
bingo.
Yeah. Ultimately, if it makes teams think twice about doing it to us, particularly at home, particularly if we are picking up a bit of momentum and teams fear us a bit more, all the better. If someone's in Danny Rose's position and they think, actually, maybe I won't kick this out because I might not get it back, great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, even better. Right. So I see that you've gone on mute, Tim, which I assume means that it's all it's all going off with the baby. So I can give you a moment. Is that what happened? Yeah. Okay. Do you need me to move to Clive, or can you come back?
Yeah.
Okay, will do. So Clive, the other thing is, I thought Watford's tactics in this game bordered on the violent. And one thing that's interesting about the Premier League, we talk about this a lot, Clive, right? The teams have gotten better top to bottom. 1 through 20, the teams can play a bit now. There's always maybe one team that really, isn't maybe at the level, but the level has really come up. And what you don't see a lot are the Dan Smiths, the guys that are thugs that can't play football at this level and as a result just endanger their fellow professional. But I got a little whiff of that off Watford in this game. I think Kuka, whatever his name is, in particular was a player who came across that way to me and was rightfully sent off. Danny Rose, I think could have been sent off for his clothesline on Lacazette. They went out to kick us. And I don't think that they can have any complaints about us not wanting to participate in the niceties of football when they committed almost as many fouls in a half as any team had committed against us in 90 minutes. So do you take issue with their tactics, or do you think they have every right to do that and we have to deal with it? Because I thought this was a little bit across the line. I thought Kevin Friend didn't take control of it. And on another day, maybe someone gets hurt as a result of it.
Yeah, so we all connect to games in different ways. And
very true.
This game was one I was incredibly nervous about, just due to the fact that there was an expectation on us to win. And when there's an expectation on us to win and get into that top end of the pitch, the league table, we tend to blow it. And so I was just really nervous about this game. So I don't worry so much about what other players do to us. I worry that the referee polices it appropriately. And I didn't think Mike Dean did for Crystal Palace. And if you rewatch the game again, I think he cost us the points in that day. And Crystal Palace got a lot of credit. Good side, yes. But we would have taken them if the referee did his job, right, and sent off people and booked people. We'd have taken them, no problem. And in this game, I felt he didn't quite do the job.
Can I ask you a question about that? Do you think the referees are suffering from the let them play directive, that they have a bit of an excuse there? Because like I saw a foul, I think in the Liverpool game against West Ham that is just shocking and should be a red. And I feel like we're seeing more of those this season.
Yeah. It's incredibly inconsistent. That's the Cresswell tackle and Jordan Henderson.
Yeah.
I mean, Paul Popper does something similar, a bit more force, a bit more size, and he's a bit more foreign. And suddenly he's off the pitch, right? So straight away, that's a shocking tackle. Cresswell, good old British kid, goes over the top of the ball and not with the same force, granted. And it should be a red card. And that game's completely different. And there is no consistency there. And I just want to see it policed, really. Because if they want to take us out in transition, because I would, if you're going against Arsenal, I would take us out. No problem. Just give them the cards. Give them the cards, and so they can't continuously do it. So we can transition on them and really hurt teams. That's my worry, really. I think if you're banking up against Arsenal right now, what are you trying to stop? You're definitely trying to stop us running through you fast, right? That's a definite, because we can really get on the hoof and get going and move the ball quickly, switch sides, definitely. And I thought we really managed this game well. Now I've had a chance to have a little look at it again. And the way we ringed them in, the way we kept our centre-backs really high, and then when we gave the ball away, we counter-pressed massively and won the ball back. We can do a lot more stuff now because our speed and the recovery. I mean, Watford got Dennis and Sarr. They're super sharp. Well, they're not quicker than Tommy and Nuno. And if they're not there, Ben White and Gabriel are not slow. So we've got the ability to do more things and push people back and hold them in and counter press and take the ball, create a transition and score. We should have had 2 more goals. And so we're seeing the evolution of this team and their ability to tactically adjust in games. So I don't care what these teams do. I care about the referees policing the game appropriately and keeping the right temperature of the game in a more consistent manner. And this guy nearly cost us the game. Mike Dean definitely did. And the referee against Aston Villa was much more favourable to us. I can't remember who it was. But this was happening game on game. We need to build our rep. So we're a good side. Let's get that big club favouritism back again, because we seem to be the smallest big club out there. And so we're the ones that get the rub of the green the other way, because it's almost like we're the they'll create us like the underdog almost, and make sure we don't get that rub of the green. I've always felt that. I've always felt we haven't been British enough to get the rub of the green. We're seen as that foreign club, that 21st club. I've said it before. But I feel this is changing due to the youth of the team. I feel it's changing due to likability of the team and how we play. And I think this is something we need to build on going forward and establish ourselves. So, mate, I don't care. Just referees, do your job and we go from there.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, when you get away with it, and by get away with it, I mean, like, get the result, it's easier to not care. But I do care. I don't think it is okay for teams to do this. And I think the only way you stop them from doing it is refereeing. And I mean, Stoke stayed up in the Premier League for a long time getting away with this shit. So yeah, I think it's a shame. I think that's it, Paul. The last bit here is just what do we start to think about as targets? Seasons are about setting targets, near term and long term, right? Here's a run of 5 games. We want to take, 12 points or 10 points, and here's where we want to be at New Year's, and here's where we want to be in this time and that time. And AFCON is going to complicate that. And I certainly think the performance of Maitland-Niles and Sambi today again in this game, is a really encouraging sign for that period. But what is fair? I mean, one of the things that can suck about elevating expectations is it's easier to dash them. Like going into the season, all of us had top 6 as the goal. Had we reached it, we would have considered it success. It's hard not to dream bigger than that. And just to put that in perspective, through 11 games played, we are now on 20 points. 2 off Liverpool in 4th place. If we were to beat them in the next game, which again, set that aside for a second, we'd be ahead of Liverpool. We could potentially finish that game week level on points with Man City and West Ham, and 3 points behind Chelsea. Now, that all the results would have to go our way. We're currently 6 points off the top, is the point. And whether you think that's a fair reflection of who we are as a team, I mean, if we had our players for the start of the season, maybe we just get the win at Brentford and we're at 23 points and we're sitting in second right now. I mean, you can't rewrite history that way. But Paul, it is hard not to think, screw top 6, let's go top 4. What do you think is a fair reflection of where this team can go based on where it's been so far?
So I think there's absolutely no way we should be getting our expectations into top 4. That's something you worry about if that's where you're at when you get to March, April. I think you've had, like, if you're in this squad, in this team, if you're this manager, you go game by game, literally. As soon as you start thinking beyond that. Now, as supporters, we live in a different world. We don't perform in the next game. We don't perform in the next run of games. We can take our head up and say, well, what should I hope for? What could this team, what's good or bad for this team given what they've shown so far and where they're at? Like, top 6 is realistic, very realistic now. And I thought that before the season started. And then after that 3-run streak at the start of the season, I'm like, oh shit. Well, top 6 is clearly possible, on something we should aim at. There'll be twists and turns. I think if you get 2 result in terms of the season, not game, but if you get 2 result focused on the season, then it stops your process, your development, where we're going. We're not playing remotely the football we're looking to play. I bet when Arteta looks at this game afterwards, he's like, that guy isn't there, this guy isn't here. It looks like clown shoes to him when he looks at where we're at and where he's trying to get this team to go to. And you can't get obsessed with where are we at versus our objective of kind of results. You take it game by game while developing your process, while developing how you play. It's not immediately apparent to the fans that you're kind of inching your way forward in terms of your style of play, but he's now got some goodwill, some good results, some more interlull time to kick us on a little bit. We're about to hit a period where we're going to be playing 2 games a week towards the end of November into December, January and February with cups. As long as we stay in the cups, it'll be getting pretty close to 2 games a week, and we'll really start to see things click on in terms of how we play, how we click, the synchronicities. And there's
a part of me that got secretly kind of quietly wishes we just had a heroic failure in the League Cup so we didn't have that to worry about, given now that our league season looks so much more encouraging. But
yeah, maybe, but I do think when things are going well and you want to keep everybody engaged, I don't think it's going to hurt us. I really don't. I think we got enough players
it's that
who are
two-legged
desperate.
semifinal staring us in the face in January during AFCON that we could probably do without.
Yeah, for sure. So, like, you always go to, what does this mean for results? And as soon as you do that, I'm like, oh no, don't do that, and those are our personality types. I'm like, no, don't do that. And I still like, of course, you have to have targets, but you got to be pretty fluid with your targets and not get. To me, I think, as a manager, you're not going to want to be too hung up on that as a club, even. I know we think, well, there must be objectives and they'll have to have told the managers to do that. I think they're like, you just don't know with kids, with this project. You just kind of got to everybody's looking at it with more of a qualitative, is it going in the right direction? Because there's going to be way more variance in our team than there is for even a Leicester City or something like that. Like that's a fairly mature side with mature expectations. Ours, it fucking depends. It depends on so many factors. I don't think you can get too hung up on it. We have no chance of making top 4 if anybody else does what they need to do. Like, West Ham are strong and solid. I know they're going to have a tougher run playing in Europe, etc., but they look the business. United will eventually get themselves sorted one way or another. They'll be in the top 4. Maybe it'll open up. Conte will get Spurs organized. They'll be in the mix. It's possible. I just wouldn't get hung up on, like, top 4 is what you're worried about if in March we're there and the others haven't performed. That's basically my feeling on it.
Yeah, and I mean, West Ham would be the one you'd be targeting, but it's interesting. You look at the table, we get hung up on advanced metrics. Sometimes, like, unadvanced metrics can help you just get a sense of things. Just glance at the table and it jumps out at you, right? Look at the goals scored, for example. Chelsea 27, Man City 22, West Ham 23, Liverpool 31, Arsenal 13. That's the cutoff right to 5th. But here's the other one. Look at goal difference. Chelsea 23, City 16, West Ham 10, Liverpool 20, Arsenal 0, United 2, Brighton 0, Wolves -1, Spurs -7. Spurs have scored 9 goals this season. 9. In 11 matches. Oh, they suck. I love it. But yeah, so right now there's a top 4, and then there's another cluster that don't really have a claim to having deserved that yet. But the difference with that other cluster is we had a 3-game start that I know this isn't how it works. You can kind of pull out of the sample set. And when you do that, we look a lot more deserving to be in that conversation. Clive, final thought there?
Yeah, I think we've trucked along nice and quietly. Winning games, major of the month and winning games nice and quietly. Now people are starting to notice us and people are starting to call up our players internationally. And the volume of games will increase, as Paul has just noted. And I think that's going to be the challenge for us now. We're going to have people away. Gabriel's going away to Brazil. Now, I'm not sure if he would normally gone away, but he's gone now for a couple of weeks. Smith Rowe, in some ways, going with a full squad, he's better than the under-21s because he may not play. But he's going to get that experience, which he richly deserves. So people are going to start. Sambi, I believe, he's in a full Belgium squad, whereas he wasn't last time, right? Yeah. So this is our next challenge, right? We're getting better. And how we manage that is going to be key for us going forward. As for league position, we're not playing in Europe, and we spoke with Lewis the other day, Elliot. I think that's going to start to show up next year, not this year. And we're going to really see how people cope. If we get a bit of luck with injuries, then I think we're going to be right in there if we continue like this.
Well, look at Liverpool. I mean, no discredit to West Ham, who played great against Liverpool, but they have to play Atletico Madrid in midweek and maybe just a little off their best against West Ham. And that's all it takes in the Premier League right now. The easy game thing, that just doesn't exist much in the Premier League. There's maybe a couple of them, but not too many. The good news is City away, Liverpool away, and Chelsea away. Those are probably the hardest 3 games you'll have. After this Liverpool game, we'll have played City away, we'll have played Liverpool away, we'll have played Chelsea at home. There's some room there to continue to move up. And I hope that's the case. Tim, I don't want to make it sound like I've just cut you out of the podcast, but you sort of asked to be, and I'm ready to wrap it up. So I'll just ask you if you have anything to add to our hypothetical about Arsenal winning the title or not.
I completely agree with Paul. Don't set targets. Even if I were the team, I wouldn't really I've been really enjoying this period, and I've not looked at the table at all. And it's only now that I've looked at it and thought, oh, okay, we are where we are. Like, I've not been looking at it. I've just been enjoying it. And that's kind of what I want to keep doing. I think sometimes targets can limit you as well, because then you start thinking about, well, if we take a point here and we protect that, like, just try and win the next game. Or try and play well in the next game. I think that's got to be the target. I think that's where we are at the moment in, quote unquote, this project.
I'll put you down for third then.
Why not?
Just kidding. Yeah, no, I agree with everything you said. Okay, we'll leave it there. So just as a reminder, lots and lots and lots of content coming out. Tomorrow, Tim's interview will come out, and I'll try to put some stuff around that. Maybe get someone to come on to talk a little bit about that topic. And then we'll have the Watford rewatch for patrons. We'll have Premier League roundup for patrons. You do not want to miss that, because there's going to be a lot more laughing at Spurs and United and all kinds of clubs. So please join us for that. European roundup with Phil Costa. I've got some new concepts that we're going to try out that will probably be terrible. You won't want to miss that, so you can laugh at us. And I just want to say, the London trip, I haven't had a chance to put a podcast out about some of the stuff that happened then. So maybe this international break is a good time to do that. We're going to do a rewatch of a classic game. Just cannot say enough how special this podcast community, the people around it, meeting everybody has been, and what it means to me and all of us. So thank you so much, everyone, for being here. It's really special. I'm actually looking at moving the family to London for the summer, so it can be a little closer to Tim and Clive, a little closer to the club, be there for games at the start of next season, and do more live events. Going to have another live event in April or May. So more to come, and more to come to build the community that you are very much appreciated for being a part of. So love to you and love to everyone else. Paul's on Twitter at Pause My Pants. Thank you, Pause.
Woohoo!
Clive's on Twitter, Clive PFC. Thanks, Clive.
Thank you very much.
Tim's on Twitter, still better. Thanks, Tim.
My pleasure as always.
My name is Elliot Smith. You can block me on Twitter, Yankee Gunner, but you can also send me well wishes for recovery of my pneumonia. I'm kidding. Don't do that. Just block me. It's all good. Everybody love everybody. I hope you have a wonderful international break celebrating where we are. We love you, and we'll talk to you after Arsenal 10, Liverpool 0.